Thank you. Ajay, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I can take some names. Hi, Nilanjana, Rutuja, Ruby, and every one of you. I could only see the first ones that came in. So welcome again to this knowledge series. Vowel has been organizing a knowledge series because Vowel's motto is make learning happen. And when we really want to make learning happen, we need to really see what issues and challenges that the industry can face. And it's best that leaders and experts from the industry come in and speak about it so that all of us can actually hear from them. They can share their views. And this is one attempt, this session is one attempt from the same series. All of us are now bothered because of COVID. All of us are great forward-looking organizations, professionals. And we want to really see as to how we can still keep working well and how we can actually keep learning while this problem persists. So today I have eminent speakers for the panel. Let me begin with Anup Malavia. So Anup is the head of learning and development and OD and corporate communications at Tata Technologies. Suhas Baxi is an independent director at Praj Industries right now. At the same time, he has been heading positions at MD and CEO level with Kone Cranes, Demac Cranes, Pennar Industries, Triple Point as a technology enterprise, and so on. And then we have Mr. Anil Salvi. Anil Salvi is the MD and CHRO of JM Financial. And he comes from the financial services industry. He's held wonderful positions before at other financial services companies like UBS. And thank you all of you for joining in and actually coming on and sharing your views. So I'm going to start with my first question. And the first question is for all of you. Maybe we can begin with Anup. Anup comes from an industry close to me, which is IT. So Anup, how has COVID impacted you? And how are you still keeping on working? And how are you making this whole thing still happen and keeping the organization together? And after you, Suhas and Anil, you should also speak.
Thanks, Ajay. Thanks for the opportunity. I think this question is, the answer to this question is evolving. So maybe I can say that in the last 20-25 days that we are witnessing this around us. There are multiple forms in which it has impacted. Obviously, being an IT services, engineering services company, our clients are first impacted. And because of that, being a service provider, we are impacted as well. So on the business front, there is an immediate impact that we are seeing because of COVID-19. The second impact that I would say that these are times where this crisis is of a very different nature. Not that I have seen ever since I have been in the profession. This is a combination of financial challenge, but more importantly, the first challenge that is in front of us is about the bio challenge that this particular virus poses to all of us and humanity in general. So I think there are two stages in which our company, and not only our company, all the companies in the world are impacted. First and foremost, we have to understand that our employees need to be safe. Their families need to be safe. And this, in a way, is also indicating that our customers and their families as well are properly kept at a safer level. The respective countries in which we are witnessing this pandemic, we are seeing a lot of measures being taken in order to protect the workforce, protect the citizens, etc. Once we kind of get a hang around this situation, which is more biological in nature, then will come the second part, which is the financial challenge, which will arise out of businesses not willing to spend. We are in cost conservation mode already. The decisions of hiring new people will go through a change, and also how we look at the way of working post-COVID, that is also going to be considered in few weeks from now. So I think overall, to summarize and then invite my co-panelists to answer, my view is, yes, our organization is impacted, our customers are impacted, and so are our employees. And we are going to tackle it in two steps. One is first, get a hold on the bio-related challenges that is in front of us by staying safe, staying quarantined. And once we are out of that situation, then see how we can work on the financial crisis, which is almost looming in front of us. And we have to work around that with our customers, with our employees, and come out of that situation in the next 3 to 4 quarters. Anil and Suhas, over to you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much, Anup. I probably want to address this question more from the manufacturing sector or the manufacturing industry standpoint. Most of our customers belong to non-essential sector, non-essential services. So you find customers' operations are closed. If your customers' operations are closed, there is hardly any business that you as an organization are undertaking right now. I am on board of a couple of companies which are in capital creation, capacity creation business. Nobody is really at the moment talking about new capacities, and one doesn't expect new capacities getting created in the short run, even post-COVID. So a lot of companies will have to recalibrate their business plans, have a serious look at what their order book is, have a serious look at what type of business would they project to their stakeholders going forward. So I would say business clearly is experiencing disruption and is expected to experience disruption even going forward. That's at one level where you're talking business and business organization. The second, most manufacturing companies have a high number of blue-collared workmen who work on shop floor. And shop floor jobs, you will never be able to bring home. Jobs will never be work from home jobs. So I would say 60 to 70% of manufacturing jobs right now are idling. 20 to 30% of the jobs which are staff jobs are engaged in work from home activities, which would essentially be those activities which are improvement project oriented, learning oriented, or strategy oriented. Work is being created to make sure that people are creatively engaged. So work from home is actually very good for organizations in engineering, technology space. When it comes to manufacturing space, work from home is a very difficult concept to implement across the board. I do see going forward certain redefinitions coming in terms of type of roles and responsibilities in jobs and type of work that you could actually do remotely. And those changes will happen. So organizations are currently engaged in what I would say as clearly coming up with a plan to keep their people creatively engaged. And second and most importantly, how to get the real shop floor jobs started, how to have your supply chain started in some manner of in semblance of acceptability post the current lockdown is over, whenever it gets over. And last but most important is going to be the cash flow cycles of manufacturing companies. Most of the Indian manufacturing companies are part of supply chain of larger organizations. So when your customers are not working, at some point in time, cash flows would get impacted. So strategies around how would you conserve cash and how would you manage your cash flows are becoming extremely important for companies. I mean, I would probably put my answer limited to these 3 points at the moment.
Okay. Anil, coming to the financial services industry, what do you think? And how has it affected your company?
Yeah, am I audible, Ajay?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, thank you so very much, Ajay. And oh, thank you, Anup, Ajay, and Suhas. I think thank you for setting the context. I think, we are in an unprecedented situation, and that's the kind of description all of us would have heard it often in last few weeks, and and I don't know how many of us across industries would be able to say that yes, I think we were prepared for an eventuality or an incident or a contingency like this, and we had factored in this kind of an disruption in our contingency planning. I think this particular event has caught us everyone by surprise. I have been in the field of HR for past about 30 years, and when I look back, I don't recall having dealt with something like this ever. So there is no clearly the kind of competency to deal with this kind of a situation. I think it's not established. I guess one needs to put our experiences together, and probably the conscious nest together, put our leadership to test, and I think find the solution. Funnily, whenever I'm looking back and I'm just digressing a bit, Ajay, and allow me to do that.
Sure.
In terms of how do I correlate this situation to anything that would have happened in my life. I was 5 years old, and the year was 1972, and India was at war. So I have those faint memories of all the lights being switched off, and people, as a child, you being sitting in the house. I remember my grandmother actually once went to bathroom, and you had those lower glass, and she took a candle there, and a lot of people threw a lot of stone at our house, and I still remember one of the panel got broken, and I got so scared at that point in time as a child, a 5-year-old. I couldn't comprehend in terms of what was happening around, and the most important thing at that point in time, which bothered me, when is this going to end? Right. And that's where the correlation comes into play, Ajay. I think I'm not as scared as I was then, but I'm actually worried, and honestly worried in terms of when this current situation is going to come to an end. I think we have been talking about mitigating it in a different manner. I think we heard Suhas and Anup talk about industry specific action, and they also talked about the situations from the industry to industry. I think Suhas very well said that in a tech kind of a platform, very well you could do a work from home, but how do you do that in manufacturing kind of a setup, right? You need to go there and produce, right? And so the implications could be different. So I think this situation has impacted everybody. And when I say everybody, it's all the stakeholders in the game. Be it the staff employees, be it the promoters, be it the shareholders, be it the consumers. So all the stakeholders are being impacted, and when all the stakeholder of an organization, of an economy getting impacted, I think it's a major event. And I don't think, and when I look back, I don't think that there would have been any such event which is impacted globally. I think you would have had the wars, but they were local, right? You would have had the issue, Gulf War, when the oil fell to whatever, $30 or $25 at that point in time, a barrel, and the same thing happened. But this is very different. I think it has impacted each and every aspect of our lives. We virtually, I think people are talking about what, billions of people being confined to home. I don't know when that happened last. Coming back to our firm and my firm where I work, we are into different kind of businesses, right? Besides HR, I also head a business which is a real estate consulting business. So the business which I head, or the business which I'm CEO of, is a business where my people, we have about 250 people in the business which I head. They actually go out and they facilitate sales transactions of real estate. Particularly residential real estate units. Now that's one business, and there are other businesses like lending businesses. So when you lend money, I think there's a book outside, and the interest is due, right? I think in the current kind of announcement, there is an announcement that 3 months interest moratorium has happened. I think some people were being really happy in terms of they don't have to pay the interest, but now I think the final somebody has to pay the interest, and I think it's only deferment of interest. And yes, I think we are into that business, but that if that money is outside, that money is going to keep on earning business for you or the interest for you. Your challenge in those businesses could be probably collection, probably default, how you're going to find a solution for that. So the issue is going to be different. For the business which I had, where I need to go out and facilitate, now we are all homebound. People don't buy house over the phone. So you basically have to go out in the market and take them and show them 5 properties, and then they make a buy. So likewise, that particular business, I have seen a zero kind of a business over last 3 weeks. So it's all stopped. So all people at home, so they can't work from home. So period, right? And there could be other businesses, like you said, tech business could be there, or the other businesses could be there, which could be working from home. And there is yet another business, which is essential business, like banks are working. And the broking companies are working, mutual funds are working. So because stock market is working, and we are also business in broking. So we have staff which actually goes to the office. So we have about, JM Financial, we have about 100 odd people who actually go to about 3 to 4 offices, and they work out of those offices. So you have, different kind of buckets in which the employees would fall, the people who would actually, the life has not changed, or contrary, the life has become much more demanding, because under the current situation, they still need to go to office and deliver the stuff, and they need to face all the challenges possible, right? And there are other set of people who are working from home and trying to make things happen and trying to make it as regularly as possible. And the third set of people who are sitting at home, but they can't do much, correct? Yeah. And I think each set of people are worried, right? The people who will be worried most are the people who are at home and not able to do stuff, correct? I think there could be a month, there could be 2 months, or there could be 3 months that you probably could take care of them, and what happens next, right? I think that's the kind of a worry, because the biggest challenge and the problem that the current event has forced us upon is the visibility, right? Anybody's guess is anybody's guess, correct? Can anybody say that this is going to end in 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks? We don't know. We simply don't know how the trajectory is going to be. And they are talking about the second wave, and they're talking about the third wave, and then stuff like that. So I think it's unprecedented in many manners, and it's just unraveling. It's just unfolding. So I'm extremely keenly watching in terms of how this is going to unfold. And interestingly, I think the organizations which are able to demonstrate resilience, the organizations which are able to demonstrate the kind of leadership which is required to be demonstrated in situations like this will come triumphant. It's just like a war, right? 2 countries getting into war. The country which demonstrate, or the military or the army or the fighting unit demonstrating a superb tactical and leadership ability, comes out to winner. Likewise, those organizations which would demonstrate a lot of resilience, a lot of maturity, would come out winners. But I think it's too early to say that. The world is going to be different. The world is going to be new. Don't ask me how, because I don't know. Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be an interesting kind of a phase and then situation. So I'm worried. I'm excited. I see a lot of opportunity from the current situation, and I also, most importantly, see a lot of learning, right? Learning for all of us to take it to the next phase when we put this behind us. Yeah. So that was 2 bits from my side.
Right. So while you're at it, Anil, now let me start backwards from you. Mm-hmm. What message can you share with all your employees and colleagues and
even otherwise, as a leader. So we know that we need to have resilience, but at the same time, we really don't know how things are going to shape up. And in this trying time, if we want to keep all of our employees and everyone together, what would you actually do? What would you tell your people to do? Apart from, of course, the detailed outline of duties to be carried out, what message would you give them?
I think, what's going to happen, the message is going to be the function of your actions. You don't go out and tell them that, you do this or I'm with you. That's not going to be the message. And then the messaging happens by the kind of action that you demonstrate over a period, right? The action in terms of, how transparent you as an organization are with your employees, right? And being transparent means, it's also the perception of seeing the leadership being transparent with them. How communicative are you with them, right? Have you, when did you start, started having those formal communications with them? How frequently are you having that communication with them? And is it have you created an avenue where they can ask questions as fearlessly as you are in a position to convey certain messages to them? Have you created that kind of a platform? And have you been objective and candid with them, right? I think what employees want at this point in time is not that don't worry, everything will be all right kind of stuff. I think you in current generation and the kind of industry that we operate, it's a knowledge industry, and then people are matured. People expect them to be treated maturely. If there are challenges, they would expect organization to table the challenges on the table, and convey to them, this is the kind of a challenge we're facing. We are provided for next quarter, so we are not worried about a quarter. But if it extends beyond the quarter, I think we might have challenge. As far as the salaries are concerned, we are taking, don't worry, we will take care of you. And the kind of visibility to an extent that you can give, and genuinely and transparently, and because they also know, right? I think today's the world is extremely porous, extremely transparent. They know organizations' health because all your the financial ability is out there, right? I think we also as an organization know, and people know what's the kind of an organizational and financial strength that the organization has. How much of a money that is there on the reserve, how much of the profitability that the company has. Tomorrow as a company, you're a profitable organization, you go to the employees and tell them, you see, I'm not going to be able to pay you salary for the month. I think, while the organization or the employees know or aware that the organization has inherent capability to do that, I think, that is not going to help. I guess, and again, you would have seen this earlier, you would have heard this earlier, that this is a situation that I think which is going to distinguish from the men to the boys, right? I think from organization's perspective also, I think the organizations have to develop. So when I'm saying the resilience, I think they have to walk the talk, that they have to demonstrate all the ability. They have to take people into confidence in terms of the situation that they're facing, and you need to make the employees party to the situation, and that's what the employees at this point in time would expect and want. They don't want lip service. They don't want, don't worry, you sit at home, we'll let you know when you need to resume work. That ain't helping. That ain't helping. I think, that's a very regressive kind of, way of looking at things. We need to communicate with substance, communicate with information. And then one needs to understand the difference between communication and information, right? See, people would say, and lot of organizations would do that mistake in the current environment, assuming that there is a lot of information which is available in any case out there in the market. So what's there for us to communicate? We don't need to communicate what care, because everybody is telling. But believe you me, the employees would expect the organization, their leaders, to come and talk to them and tell them what is expected of them, how do they interpret the situation, current situation, right? And then be consistent at that, so that what happens is over a period also the employee or the staff or the stakeholder, okay, this is my communication channel, rest of the staff, the TV, radio, and the neighbors in the WhatsApp university, as they call it, right? COVID university of WhatsApp, that will continue to educate us, whatever is happening around. but they would know, I think, this is the gospel truth, and that is what, and for organization, I think, it's a very critical kind of a situation, a critical kind of, element in everybody's life, right? As we say, most of our productive time we spend in organization, and most of the time we give it to the organization. So I think, organization has a significantly larger role to play. Yeah.
Right. So now, will the message be the same, Suhas, coming to you? Like you said, manufacturing industry or industry that is no customer is from the essential services or essential products background. And every industry has a separate story, although the message of resilience stays. But in terms of context, how would it change for a company like Praj or Kone or Dimag or any other manufacturing setup?
Well, for a very long time, many manufacturing companies, and I go back to the days when Union Carbide faced we had the Bhopal gas tragedy. Since that time, many companies have been gearing up to create what could be called as a business continuity plan. Okay, what happens when a tragedy strikes? What happens when force majeure situation like war, or situation which leads to destruction of your entire manufacturing facility assets, discontinuation of your customer's business? There could be so many different situations that you would want to game for and you would want to strategize for. So most large global companies have had what could be called as business continuity plan. Now, let's say if I'm Volkswagen and tomorrow one of my major tire suppliers faces a lockdown, what do I do? If I am Tata Motors and my engine manufacturer suddenly faces a labor unrest, what do I do? So there are lots and lots of plans that companies do have. So what I would see is that almost everybody will have to go back to their business continuity plans and see what are the options in front of them. You will need to seriously go back to drawing board and do scenario building and say what happens when. Okay. This is where I would juxtapose what Anil said with respect to communication. I think it's extremely important to have communication about what do you plan to do, what are your options, rather than stating information and stating data. Data and information is nowadays transparently available to everybody.
Correct.
Your ability to use that information and data and take decisions, state alternatives, engage people in creating these alternatives is going to be critical. A typical manufacturing company is not just about the number of people that you're employing. It's also about your supply chain. So if you take a manufacturing plant, let's say an automotive plant, which is employing 5,000 people, the factory would also have few hundred suppliers, and each one of these suppliers would be in turn employing all put together 50,000 people. There would be a logistics value chain which would be dependent on you. Now, when you turn the switch off and say, now I am in a lockdown situation, and when you now have to turn it on one step at a time, the plan that goes into it, the nuance that goes into it, and the communication that will happen from that needs to create confidence, but not just confidence, it needs to create trust. I think that is the most important part of this communication. The second part that I would like to mention, which is a little different from what Anil said, is the layers of communication that you need to have in organizations, which have people coming from different socioeconomic backgrounds, is also extremely important. So you've got your managers and executives who are, am I audible? I think suddenly the images seem to be frozen.
No, you're audible.
I'm audible, good. So you have your managers and executives who do belong to what would be a set of employees similar to anybody working at Infosys or anybody working in any of the services companies. And then you have your labor force, which does come from a little different socioeconomic background. You've got your suppliers and their people, your contract laborers, your contractors, so on and so forth. So the layers of communication start mattering. How do you create trustworthy communication in these layers so that the continuity of supply chain when you need it doesn't get compromised? Because your commitments are not just local, your commitments are global. You would have global suppliers, you would have global customers. So the impact of these actions is going to be quite profound. And given the impact is quite profound, the communication is important. Layering that communication is important. Designing that communication and having it based on a real solid plan, which is your business continuity plan. That is what I would say is extremely critical on communication front. The second part, which I would also lay emphasis on, is how do you use this opportunity to create positivity and to create an atmosphere of learning? People on this call are also from learning and development fraternity. So I would say this is probably a golden opportunity for organizations to engage in no holds barred learning, to allow collaborative learning, to encourage people to create content, to curate that content, to allow to make people undertake courses which they have avoided in the past. There is no urgency today. There is no boss breathing down your neck and saying, oh, there's something more urgent, attend to that. So take advantage of that. So I would say on one side, looking at business, creating communication, which is trustworthy communication, is extremely important. But second, looking at your people and making them use this time for some great learning is also going to be equally important. I would put these two as clear strategies that I would have in front of me.
Oh, thanks so much. And of course, everyone, there is a poll set up. You can take the poll and answer the poll. Coming to Anup, Suhas just mentioned about communication, and also creating communication can become a challenge and an opportunity for HR and L&D from the employee's perspective. So Anup, what would you suggest the HR fraternity or the L&D fraternity, how they can use this time best to make sure that the message is passed on, the skills are still built before we start the plant or your company or the factory? So what would you suggest to the HR and the L&D fraternity? So Anup, did you hear my question?
Yeah. Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry for that.
Sure.
I have a question, Ajay. So coming to your question, I will answer it in two parts. One is I will wear the hat of the learning and development professional that I am, but I also take the responsibility of internal communications in my company. So there are two sides of it, which I will answer one after the other. Starting with the communication bit, I think Anil and Suhas both have emphasized enough on the need of communication in this time of crisis. It is very important to distinguish between information that is generally available and information in the context of the organization and the stage in which you are. I think when we got into this crisis, we also had this challenge that there were innumerable sources from where we were getting information, but our challenge was which one is more authentic and which one can be shared with our employees. So first few days, my team had to work on finalizing which information should be shared with our employees, because the context in which we operate is a little different than the other companies that are around us. So we had to fix that problem. The second one is informing the employees as to what the organization is going to do in the period of crisis. So like Anil mentioned, there is enough transparency that we have to maintain, because there is anxiety, there is uncertainty, And I would say the VUCA word that we have been using over many, many years, this is the real time where VUCA is around us. And employees and all of us collectively are wondering what is going to happen tomorrow, right? So we had to come up with a series of communications. One, which was about what is it that you should be doing under COVID from a health perspective, safety of your family, etc. Second category was what are the changes that we have to go through when we enable work from home in our context. And third, how do we provide business continuity? The point that Suhas was mentioning, that while the changes are happening around us, how do we maintain business continuity? So very simple things like how will you book your timesheet while you are operating from home? Even the communication and discussions around that with the leadership team had to be taken in like no time, and
Right.
the communication had to be done to all the employees. Plus we have employees again Suhas was mentioning, employees who are able to work from home because the customer allows that to happen. At the same time, there are employees who are working with customers who are manufacturing clients, and our employees work from their premises. So a different set of treatment for those set of employees who are working from customer premises. Uh, we also have introduced an app where we are checking the health of every employee every day. This is to ensure that Tata Group as a whole, we report on a daily basis out of the total population of Tata Technologies, how many people, if any, are unwell, and we share that number with our group corporate so that there is a continuous information flow between the corporate headquarters and the companies. And this is done by all the Tata companies with the group. The intent here is to let the group know that out of our total workforce, so many people are unwell. And if there is any need of any form, the group comes and provides assistance to these employees through the company. So that's the second bit of communication that we are maintaining at the moment. The third one is a communication which kind of blends itself to the learning and development area as well. Is now that the managers are managing their teams remotely or virtually, many managers came to us and asked, Anup, tell us, how am I supposed to do my huddle calls now? What are some of the things that I should keep in mind as a manager while my employees are working from home? And more importantly, if there is a breakdown in terms of project escalations, team working, etc., how am I supposed to manage those situations? Because the team is not in front of me, but I have to still resolve and deliver the commitment that I have made to my customers. And that's where, from communication, we gradually enter into the learning space. So we have some content which we have developed in-house. Plus, we have some association with LinkedIn and other sources from where we have sourced content. And this content is being made available to managers and respective team members in a self-learning mode. And we have also enabled learning partners who are dedicated spokes for each lines of business to ensure that if any of the managers in the respective business unit has any kind of operations challenges in terms of managing people, managing business, at least they can ask a question to the learning partner, and this learning partner will go out, find a solution and provide it back to the respective person. I think that's on the behavioral or people management side. On the business side, which is technology for us, we have our own engineering content, plus we have multiple partnerships with OEMs through which we deliver a lot of services to our customers. We have spoken to them and we have made available content to our employees so that while they do the business delivery, they also take out some time to reskill or upskill themselves. Because once they are back to office after 5 or 6 weeks or whatever time it will take, we don't want them to sit and learn something. They have acquired that skill while they were in work from home mode, and that will act as I would say so-called motivation that now I am back to office and here is my next opportunity on which I will work, which is purely driven by the new skill that I have acquired. So that's how we have been channelizing communication and learning into our organization.
Right. Well, thanks so much. That was great. Um, so I think we've got only about 8-10 minutes left, and so here's a question for all. I think Suhas has already answered it on the chat. So James has asked one question from UK. What kind of training do you think should be given now? How does one do onboarding? Questions like those, especially when new people are joining or people who are already working from home. What kind of training should be imparted? How can it be imparted? And how does one induction when the joining date is within this period? So, and this question is for all actually. You can take your turns.
So, I did mention a couple of things on the chat, so I'll try and complete my thought there. What I see happening is some of these trainings will be related to the type of changes that one would see. Work from home, remote working hasn't been new to most large companies. There have always been set of people, set of teams who work remotely and who work from home. But these teams and these people have always been internal to the organization. So you're used to having your back office, which could be remote. You're used to having your engineering or IT setup, which is remote. You're used to having support functions, which are remote. What has typically happened in most conventional businesses is the interface with the outside world has involved fair amount of travel, has involved fair amount of physical proximity with the stakeholders, whether it is customers, whether it is suppliers, whether it is agencies who certify your quality, interviews that you conduct wherever you conduct them. A lot of these have involved one-on-one or one-to-many physical interactions. What I see happening is that some of these business processes, for sake of one, efficiency, number two, driven by compulsion, would see a lot of changes. And because these business processes will change, one will have to retrain the people who are part of this process, sometimes including external stakeholders. And this retraining will have to be an urgent retraining that gets carried out. So I would say if I'm running an L&D business, which is focused on training people, then I would probably start working on some of these new nuances which will come in business of my existing customer. And I can straight away see these being areas where I would do training. Yeah.
I think, Ajay, yeah. So I think that another part of the question was what happens about the onboarding, right? If employees are supposed to join around this time, what is it that we as an organization should do? A very, very tricky situation and a question indeed. And all of us on a chat here, I think facing that issue now. Those people and in my experience also, I think there are different kind of situation arising out of onboarding. One is, of course, when they come on board, how you orient them and onboard them. But even before they come, they're working for an XYZ company, and are under the current situation. I think most of the organizations are in no mood to extend their tenure, right? Otherwise, in a normal situation, you get into conversation with the firm, and the situation arises. On the contrary, other way works around. The organizations typically ask people, why don't you stay a week more, or two more, or a month more, and then leave. Now the organizations have become extra efficient in terms of relieving the people if they would have asked for that release earlier. So I think that is what is happening. So people are all of a sudden being available during this lockdown period. Now there are now different type of people. Requests have come, and there are people who say, reach out to us and say, listen, I'm not while I'm supposed to join you on say 1st April, but I'm not going to be able to join because of this reason, and I'm at native, so extend my joining by whatever date. In a normal situation, many organizations would make an issue, but I think, this is an extraordinary situation. So I think most of the organizations should anyways, gracefully accept the request. There are people who would say that, yes, I want to, I'm already released and I'm ready to join. And I think, you should allow that person to essentially onboard in that case, right? Now, one other tricky situation would be, as I told you, there are certain essential businesses you run. So assume that you're running an essential services firm, and there is an employee who is supposed to join, and he wants to join but don't want to come to work for the kind of a potential risk that it possesses. Then I think you are in a very, very difficult situation indeed. So onboarding itself, I think you'll have to have a very different kind of a conversation with the incumbent concerned. While somebody comes on board, I think most of the organization today fortunately have a robust onboarding program, which I think can be explored on an a line basis. And I think you can earmark and then give an anchor in form of his team leader, his supervisor, his manager, and also the HR representative who can assist his orientation to the firm. And he can basically go through all the learning material, the product material that he needs to go through, and be ready with all the formal orientation that he needs to do when the things become normal. I think this is what I think most of the organization would be doing at this point in time.
Right.
Ajay, just a quick practical put from my side. What we did in this case is we had to defer some joinings. One, because we could not even deliver the laptop to the new hire because there were travel restrictions, etc. So we have deferred the joining for some days. Wherever it was possible, we have done digital onboarding, wherein all the forms, etc., we have made available digitally, and the person has filled it up. And then obviously using Zoom and Skype and other tools that we have connected the manager and the new hire, and somehow make that person join the company so that the work can start. So that's more from a practical side, what we have done in our company.
Oh, that's brilliant. So I think that practical advice is needed. Even in our company, we had to make one senior person join because the other person was leaving and he was joining somewhere else as well. And like Anil said, there was no extension being given. I think this practical thing we did was digital onboarding. And now we are still struggling, obviously, to get the passes to get the laptops to the right people. That's still happening, as it must be already happening in Hinjawadi. So we are also going through that. So I think the message is pretty clear. Communication, resilience, and making sure that the communication is frequent enough. It's transparent. It's not just lip service, and taking concrete actions to deliver the right training to the people who already exist, and also having a right process of onboarding. That's definitely going to help. There is one question to the panelists that's come from Meghan Deshpande. Are we expecting mergers and acquisitions in this time? Will they impact organizational learning, and what kind of a solution can be given to companies that are being merged or acquired right now?
I think, can I take that question?
Absolutely, Anil.
Yeah. So I think my answer to that question is an astounding yes. I think there will be the merger and acquisition. I think nothing is going to stop. I think it's a way of life, and this unprecedented testing kind of times would make a lot of firms and then their operations unviable, right? Depending on the kind of the sustenance of the event that happens. So they would not have I think the collaboration would become imperative for those organizations, and in that situation, yes, I think we will see a lot of, and that's my personal view, incidents of collaboration, and which you may want to call it as in mergers or acquisitions would happen. I think but the execution of those collaboration is going to be challenging during this particular time. I think we'll have to allow the event to settle down, life to get a little normal. So the organizations which are robust on their balance sheet, in their business model, would be in a position to absorb newer kind of a player or the newer technologies which are available to collaborate. So I see that opportunity, being there at the marketplace very much. Yeah, so I think that space would be pretty active, Ajay, and I think it will be interesting to watch how the situation evolves over a period of time.
There is one more question. Let's take that one. I think that's about what is the suggestion for new startups in training consulting business? Considering there is no new sales happening, what should they focus on?
I was just answering that on the chat box. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for the startups in this space to go online. Look, you want people to consume your training and learning online. So how do you create effective learning courses, effective training modules which are available online, which can be consumed there? The learning need not be in classroom, and learning can be asynchronous. Learning can be through various different mediums. So this is an opportunity for startups to actually use the technology available at their disposal and show to the world that online learning could be very, very effective.
Oh, thanks so much. I think we have just 5 minutes left. So let me use this time to thank all of you, Anil, Anup, and Suhas. Of course, we could go on, and of course, we are going to keep organizing these knowledge series where experts and leaders can come from the industry, share their views. So I think it's best that we also announce our next session where leaders can come and discuss these issues. But to summarize what has been said today, I think we've answered some very good questions that came from people who joined. And I thank all of you for joining this webinar. And thank you, Suhas, Anup, and Anil, for sharing your views. It's really nice to know that what we think as entrepreneurs and what you as leaders is pretty much aligned. And I'm happy to see that we are not far off from what you all as experts have said. So resilience, communication, and training definitely hold the fort.